Hello and welcome to In Touch with Durham County. I'm Deborah Craig-Ray, General Manager of Strategic Planning and Innovation. Thanks to our virtual platform, we're here, socially distancing and bringing you important information. Today I am pleased and honored to have as our guest Durham County Sheriff Clarence Birkhead. This is such an important topic. We're going to devote our whole show today to our wonderful conversation. Sheriff Birkhead, welcome back to In Touch. We're delighted to have you join us today.
Hello, Deborah. It is truly a pleasure to be back with you on In Touch. I am so looking forward to this conversation with you.
That's great. I was looking back at my files and I realized that you last appeared on the show in April 2019, just a few months after you took office. My goodness, so much has happened since that time, hasn't it?
It has truly been a whirlwind. Believe it or not, it is time for us to gear up for a re-election, which we're excited about, but cannot believe so much has happened since our first interview in 2019.
So for those of you who are new to the area, they may not know much about you. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about your extensive career in law enforcement, please.
Certainly, Deborah. I came to Durham in August of 1988. So I've been here for quite a while. I consider myself a transplanted Durhamite. I came here, went to work for Duke University. I also attended North Carolina Central, and subsequently I transferred to Shaw University to finish my undergrad degree while working at Duke. And I was at Duke until 1998 as an officer and as an investigator. And then I was selected to lead the agency as the chief of police and director of security and services for the hospital and the entire university. So I did that for the next 7 years. And then I got a call to be a chief of police in a neighboring jurisdiction, Hillsborough. And I did that for 5 years. So I'm in my 38th year in law enforcement, Deborah, believe it or not. And it has been rewarding. There's certainly been some challenges. But it truly has been an honor of my career to be elected as Durham County Sheriff in 2018. So my career is coming full circle here at my home in Durham County.
Excellent. And speaking of challenges, certainly this past year in dealing with the pandemic has been a challenge. Talk about how your agency has been affected by the pandemic. What have you done? How have your people come together and just kind of gotten through this period?
It really has been tough on all of us. Certainly here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office in our detention facility. When we first learned of the virus, I immediately put my team in action. We started making phone calls. We have some connections in King County, which is, in the Seattle area where the virus was first discovered. So we called the King County Sheriff's Office to immediately start sharing information, basically getting information from them as to what they were doing to try to contain it in their detention facility. We put those protocols in place immediately, certainly reached out to CDC and our public health officials here, Mr. Rodney Jenkins, and to really start forming a strategy on how we could mitigate the virus infiltrating our detention facility. And also, we made a conscious decision that we had to stay open. As the sheriff, we never closed. Courthouse, according to the Constitution, the court shall remain open. That is the responsibility of the sheriff. So from my deputies, from civil process, the detention center, we had to do everything we could do to stay open and delivering the services to the citizens of Durham County. And we did that. We immediately ordered all of our protective personal equipment, our PPE, and started distributing that, made sure we had enough on hand for the long haul. And here we are some 20 months later and still dealing with this pandemic. And I'm really happy to say all of the men and women of the Durham County Sheriff's Office stepped up, really answered the call to challenge this virus. Unfortunately, many of us have been impacted by it. We lost a couple of members in our ranks to the virus early on, but we still persevere. And we will continue to follow the science. About 90% of the Durham County Sheriff's Office has received their full vaccination. I made it mandatory in January, and I'm really happy to see now that the federal government and the governor and other jurisdictions are doing the same thing, because I truly do believe we have to follow the science, and this is what's going to get us out of this pandemic.
Absolutely. And I will also note that your team has done an outstanding job in supporting our public health unit as they are giving vaccines out in the community, and in public health you have provided, security to them.
Yes, we work closely with all of our county agencies, but especially during this pandemic, we've worked alongside public health, ensuring that people have safe access to the vaccine, and that Mr. Jenkins and his team can do the tremendous job that they've done in this pandemic. And again, I'm hopeful that we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we still have to practice the 3 Ws. We cannot let our guard down. And to your listening audience, for those who have not been vaccinated, I truly encourage them to get vaccinated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, we certainly appreciate all you do to support the community. Can you talk about some of your initiatives to address this unprecedented level of violence that we're experiencing during the pandemic?
One thing that has not been completely impacted by this virus is crime. Crime has not taken a backseat. It has not taken a holiday. And we are unfortunately experiencing unprecedented gun violence in Durham. While some of our crimes are down, and we're thankful for that, some of our crimes against persons, some of our Part 1 crimes are down compared to this time last year. But we know that gun violence is at an all-time high. One of the things I've done is I've partnered with state, local, and federal agencies, Safe Streets Task Force. I have deputies who work with DEA, ATF, HSI to really target those violent offenders. When I ran for office, one of the goals I had was to be targeted in enforcement and not engage in over-policing the traditional marginalized communities. I wanted to be very strategic in addressing the issues that I had already identified prior to becoming sheriff, and as you noted, this past year has seen a marked increase in gun violence. So we have a strike team, and our strike team works not only in Durham County, but also Orange, Guilford, Alamance, because we know crime does not have any boundaries. And that strike team is tasked with identifying individuals who are violent repeat offenders, who are engaging in gun violence, target them, identify them and apprehend them, and then bring them to justice.
So obviously law enforcement can't do it all. So how can our citizens help you?
Yeah, it's always important that we have good relationships with members of our community. I have implemented the first ever community advisory board for a sheriff's office here in North Carolina. That board meets with me on a regular basis to keep me informed of what's going on in communities. I also use it as a mechanism to build relationships all across Durham County, and we've been very successful. You may recall, Deborah, that I ran my campaign on the acronym of T, Transparency, Engagement, and Accountability. I think we have delivered on the community engagement piece. We need our community residents to talk with law enforcement, to share information with us, to see us as partners and not adversaries. It is important that we build those relationships, restore the trust in law enforcement so that we can all work together to solve these crimes, to combat this gun violence.
Sheriff, another challenge that emerged last year during the pandemic was, of course, the unfortunate murder of George Floyd by a police officer in Minnesota. That situation touched off a summer of protests and racial unrest across the country. Durham was not immune to the protests. There was vandalism, but our protests seemed to be slightly more peaceful. What do you attribute to that?
I think it goes right back to what we were just discussing, the community relationships and building trust. And we have worked tirelessly to develop those relationships. So when those protests preceded the murder of George Floyd, we were prepared to have conversations, hard conversations that law enforcement has never had. And as the chief law enforcement officer in Durham County, it is my responsibility to lead those conversations and try to come to some understanding of what happened in Minnesota. Let's talk about it and really let's move past protests and start healing in the process. And again, being transparent really helped us to do that. When a group of protesters blocked Highway 147, you may remember that afternoon, those individuals wanted their voices heard, and I appreciate their passion and their zeal to have their message and their voices heard. I was very honored when they said, we will clear the street when we can have a conversation with Sheriff Birkhead. And that is simply saying the trust and the relationship was in place for us to sit down and have a conversation. And following that protest, we did hold a summit at the Fruit and had a very productive conversation. And I think a lot of the initiatives that we're doing here in Durham was born out of those conversations.
And I will add, you actually penned a letter to the community, and that was very courageous as well.
Well, again, I am the sheriff of all the people, and I think it is important that law enforcement executives, whether it be sheriffs or chiefs of police, really step up at this moment in time to say, enough is enough. We hear you. And I wrote that letter following the murder of George Floyd. I tried not to put too much of my emotion in it, but simply to say, Deborah, I was horrified and shocked at what I witnessed when I watched that video, what everyone else in the country saw and the world witnessed that day. That is not what law enforcement represents. That is not what I've spent 38 years of my life as a professional. That is not what we are trained to do. I'm happy that he was convicted. I am really glad that the citizens who videotaped that and who had the courage to testify, and those officers who had the courage to testify, that during that trial, what led to the conviction and the sentencing of Derek Chauvin.
So I know another challenge that you have in the office is around staffing in law enforcement side as well as in the detention center. What are you doing to try to attract new personnel in your agency?
Yeah, Deborah, that is an ongoing challenge in this environment with, as we've already talked about, law enforcement has taken a black eye, and we can talk about all the way back to 2014 with the Ferguson, Missouri, and Mike Brown's murder, and all those things that have led up to where we are today. All of that has impacted interest in law enforcement. So we've seen these struggles before. Certainly dealing with the coronavirus has impacted it even more. So our vacancy rate is higher than it's ever been before. I've got 65 vacancies in detention, 25 on the law enforcement side, and it is really difficult for us to recruit qualified men and women to fill these positions for a number of reasons. But we here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office, we're holding job fairs, our recruiting on all of our social media platforms. We are encouraging and inviting qualified men and women to apply for us, to really start a career in public service and not look at it as law enforcement, because there's so many things you can do here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office, from detention to being a deputy on the street. And we need qualified men and women to fill these positions. We have an upcoming job fair here in the next couple of months before the end of the year. We're going to graduate Basic Law Enforcement Academy next week, where we are graduating 9 individuals. So we're excited about that. And then we're going to hold another Detention Officer Academy early next year. So we're hoping to fill those seats with qualified applicants.
Well, that sounds excellent. And I know you have a very nice recruitment video that you guys produced some time back. We're actually going to run that during our break. And so we'll take a look at that. And when we come back, we will continue our conversation. Stay with us.
Durham County Sheriff's Office, where's your emergency? Okay, we'll get deputies on the way. Order! Move!
How y'all doing this morning? Come on through.
I'm Durham County Sheriff Clarence Birkhead, and we want you to join our team. Honor, duty, service. If you have what it takes, our recruiting starts now.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're having a great conversation with our Durham County Sheriff, Clarence Birkhead. Sheriff, let's start with this news. Your recent appointment by Governor Cooper to the North Carolina Task Force on Racial Equity in Criminal Justice. Congratulations. And please talk a little bit about this task force and its primary goals, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. What an honor to be appointed by Governor Cooper to this task force. Again, this is necessary at this point in time, and it's something that we should have done years ago, is to really examine the racial components of law enforcement, not just from a practitioner perspective, but also from a legislative perspective, a training perspective. And the task force is really tackling all of those issues. There are some things that will be reformed through legislation, and then certainly there are some training aspects that we can introduce to our basic law enforcement training, our ongoing mandatory professional development training. So the task force is really going to be looking at all of those issues. I'm also happy to say that I'm obviously a member of the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, and immediately following the murder of George Floyd, the sheriffs of North Carolina identified some deficiencies in our training through the Sheriff's Training and Standards. So we developed a professional work group. I was honored to be appointed to that group as well. Again, looking at the training, breaking down some of the issues and deficiencies that we've identified as it relates to racial equity, implicit bias, explicit bias training, bias-based policing, data collection, and also early warning systems, again, so we can make sure that we take care of the mental health of the men and women who serve communities all across North Carolina. So I'm really honored to be appointed by Governor Cooper and to be part of both of those task forces that are really working to reform our criminal justice system.
That's really exciting, and I'm happy that you are at that table. I want to continue to talk about achievement with your agency. So, CALEA, or the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, is known as the gold standard for a well-managed, transparent law enforcement agency. Can you talk a little bit about the fact that Durham County is again accredited by CALEA?
Absolutely. What an accomplishment to be accredited by CALEA. It is exciting that the Durham County Sheriff's Office, we just achieved the 8th accreditation. And accreditation happens every 3 years. And so to receive the 8th accreditation is truly remarkable and is a testament to the work that the men and women do day in and day out here at the Sheriff's Office. Being accredited really says that we are following the best practices across the country as it relates to delivering professional law enforcement services. So to receive that honor and be the sheriff of record when we get number 8 under our belt is truly amazing and an honor for me.
Outstanding. And then, of course, you've added another success with the American Correctional Association. You are accredited by that agency as well, and that makes your center one of 3 in our state that actually has that accreditation, correct?
That is correct. For the first time in the history of the Durham County Sheriff's Office, we are ACA accredited, or American Correctional Association. This is something that we have worked towards since I came to the office, since I became the sheriff. And to receive the ACA accreditation in the middle of a pandemic is truly, truly remarkable. Like I say, this is history for our agency. And then we're also, as you know, we operate an infirmary inside the detention center. So our infirmary is also accredited through our partner who is WellPath. So we have what they refer to as the Triple Crown in accreditation. And we are only the 3rd agency in North Carolina to hold the Triple Crown, to have all 3 accreditations by these bodies. And we're only the 29th in the country. So we are really in good standing. And it is a testament to the hard work, the dedication that the men and women do here at the Sheriff's Office. Our goal is to always improve. And the fact that we now have these 3 accreditations doesn't mean that we can stop and rest on our laurels. It simply means that we have to work harder to maintain those accreditations, to continuously meet those standards. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're all about here. So whenever I'm asked that question, now you may see that it brings a sense of joy and pride, because to be in that few of a number really makes us feel good about what we're doing here.
That's just wonderful. So I know another priority that you have is around improving the infrastructure associated with the detention center. Clearly, that's a public building that's subject to the normal wear and tear. And I know you've had to make some upgrades to, of course, protect your staff as well as the detainees. Can you talk about some of that?
Absolutely. The detention center began construction in 1993 and opened in 1996. So the building has seen some years. So we are constantly evaluating where we are with the infrastructure in the building. Our population could go as high as 700. Thankfully, we're not there. I think this morning when I checked the numbers, we were at approximately 377 individuals housed in our facility. those men and women are my responsibility. According to the Constitution, they are in the care and custody of the sheriff. So I have to do everything possible to make sure that is a safe environment for them and certainly for the 226 plus employees who work there. And so we're going through a process right now evaluating our critical infrastructure, some of our life safety systems, to make sure that they are meeting the standard and in good operating condition. So this is a project that we started last year, and we will continue until we have it upfitted. Like I said, it opened in 1996. So we got to make sure that it continues to operate at its highest efficiency. Building a new facility would be quite the price tag. So I always want to make sure that we're good stewards of our county tax dollars. So we want to make sure we keep what we have running in tip-top shape.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I do want to talk about is you and your officers, you all really value transparency. You have very robust social media operating. You actually have your own television show. Hope most people watch that as well. So talk about why that's important to you, that value.
It is part of our transparency pledge. We want to operate this agency with as much transparency as possible. Our goal is to inform, educate the members of the community as much as possible. You mentioned our YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, on Twitter. I don't do much of the tweeting, but I do some of it. Again, just to get our message out and let the residents of Durham County know what's going on and some of the great things that we're doing here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office. I may one day have my own podcast, much like yourself, Deborah. So
I believe you will.
I could take some tips from you, but again, it is all geared to educate and engage our fast-growing community. And as you know, the population in Durham is an educated population, an engaged population. So we want to be able to reach them through all of these platforms.
Great. Well, we're about out of time. Is there one topic that I didn't get that you might want to mention before we end our conversation?
This has been a great conversation, Deborah. We've talked about recruiting and how important it is for us to fill these vacancies. I always like to put out a call, kind of like the pastor on Sunday morning. If you want to come and be a part of this organization, please reach out to us. We are hiring and we're looking for qualified men and women who want to make a difference in our community. That is so critical for us right now, particularly during this pandemic. And I also want to make people know that we are servants of the people. Often I hear people say, I don't want to call 911 or I don't want to call the sheriff's office. We are here to serve our community, and we encourage everyone, if they are in need or if they simply want to engage with us, to reach out and let us hear from them. We attend all the PAC meetings here in Durham City and Durham County. We attend various clubs and organizational meetings. Again, we are part of the community. We never want to be on the outside looking in. We want to be in the conversation.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for what you do for our community. And I want to thank your entire team because, again, you do fantastic work. Your men and women of your agency do fantastic work for all of us, and we are very appreciative.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It is truly our pleasure. It is a labor of love. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're going to get you on again. Maybe it won't be so long as before, but we will get you on again. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And we want to thank all of you for watching the show. We will see you next time on In Touch with Durham County. Cheers.